21, 21. Um, so EJ is going to read. So I'm going to load the verses, God willing, in BC1 dash chat. Okay. So I just loaded the verses there. If we, um,
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
everything, including the subtitles, footnotes, everything.
Okay.
All right. I seek refuge in God from Satan and rejected. Go ahead. Thank you. From one God. God bless you. Go ahead.
Um, 21. Have they found gods on earth who can create? If there were in them the heavens and the earth, other gods beside God, there would have been chaos. Glory be to God, the Lord with absolute authority. He is.
Yeah, we lost you.
Yeah, it moved. I'm sorry.
If you're on your phone and you
Yeah,
put your phone on the screen, it'll stay put no matter who comes in or writes a comment.
how do you do that?
Everyone.
What do you do?
So when I am on my phone, which is every time, if I hold my finger down on the screen,
Oh, okay.
it'll
Okay. That's good. That's very good advice. Yeah, yeah. If you just hold your finger, it won't move. Okay. That's cool.
Okay. Yeah,
All right,
got
go
it.
ahead. Start from the top. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Have they found gods on earth who can create? If there were in them the heavens and the earth, other gods beside God, there would have been chaos. Glory be to God, the Lord with absolute authority. He is high above their claims. Never questions God's wisdom. He is never to be asked about anything he does, while all others are questioned. Have they found other gods beside him? Say, show me your proof. This is the message to my generation, consummating all previous messages. Indeed, most of them do not recognize the truth. This is why they are so hostile. One God, one message, one religion. We did not send any messenger before you, except with the inspiration, there is no God except me. You shall worship me alone. Yet they said, the most gracious has begotten a son. Glory be to him. All messengers are his honored servants. They never speak on their own, and they strictly follow his commands. The myth of intercession. He knows their future and their past. They do not intercede except for those already accepted by him, and they are worried about their own necks. Footnote, the myth of intercession is Satan's most effective bait. Appendix 8. If any of them claim to be a god beside him, we requite him with hell. With us requite the wicked. The Big Bang Theory confirmed. Do the unbelievers not realize that the heavens and the earth used to be one solid mass, that we exploded into existence, and from water we made all living things? Would they believe? Footnote 2130. The Big Bang Theory is not supported by the creator's infallible mathematical code. Appendix 1, thus is no longer a theory, it is a law of proven fact. And we place on earth stabilizers, lest it tumbles with them, and we place straight roads therein, that they may be guided. And render the sky a guarded ceiling, yet they are totally oblivious to all the portents therein. And he is the one who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon, each floating in its own orbit, who never decreed immortality for anyone before you. Should you die, are they immortal? Every soul will taste death. After we put you to the test through adversity and prosperity, then to us you ultimately return. So
Okay. Yeah. So thanks. Thanks for that. Chapter 21, verse 21 to 35. Um, Brother EJ Evis read all those. Did you want to make some comments about the verses you read? Go ahead. Did you read all the footnotes? I'm sorry if I missed that.
yeah, I
Okay, good.
did.
Good. Go ahead. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, let me just go through them real quick. Oh man, this is moving. So in verse 22, it says, if they were in them, other gods beside God, there would have been chaos, right? Glory be to God, the Lord with absolute authority. He is high above their claims. So what this, to me, this verse is connected to why there is chaos on earth, right? And the fact that Satan is temporary God with small g here, therefore, he cannot run this world properly. Therefore, you see a lot of chaos, right? God's hand is everywhere, and still, like even though God sustains it and has established all the laws for as far as like earthly the material laws here, like gravity and all this kind of stuff, still like he is the best provider. He provides the creatures with provisions, and still even the minute things that Satan claimed to be able to do, he's unable to do. Therefore you see chaos, and this is resonating with what will happen on the day of judgment. I think like beside like hell is farthest place from God. I think like the analogy would be that hell is a place of chaos, right? Where chaos reigns supreme. And then in other words, like allegorically speaking, when God is describing chaos, I think it's a place of hell is a when God is describing hell in the Quran, is a place of chaos, of total chaos, right? That's what I understand from this passage. All right, so passing on. Whoever wants to make other comments.
Sure. I wanted to just comment about the first verse. Have they found gods on earth who can create? It reminds me of 22:73 regarding the fly. It says, "O people, here's a parable that you must ponder carefully. The idols you set up beside God can never create a fly, even if they banded together to do so. Furthermore, if the fly steals anything from them, they cannot recover it. Weak is the pursuer and the pursued." If you take a cell, like a functional living cell, and you just break its cell membrane, so all the component parts are there, but now it's a dead cell. No scientist in the world can put those components back together into a living functional cell. It's the same thing with the human being. The human being dies. There's nothing any scientist can ever do to put that soul back into that human being. And this just shows that, we think that we create these things. We don't. God gives us just the component parts. We can rearrange them, but all these things comes back to God. And what's fascinating is there's a number of these verses in the Quran. In 29:61, it says, "If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth and put the sun and the moon in your service, they will say, God. Why then did they deviate? God is the one who increases the provisions from whomever he chooses from among his creatures and withholds it. God is fully aware of all things. If you ask them, who sends down from the sky water to revive dead land, they will say, God. Say, praise God. Most of them do not understand." Most people, if you ask, hey, do you believe God's the creator? Do you believe, this all came from God? They'll say yes. But then we see that there's a different component to this if they genuinely believe those statements. I'll stop there.
So, verse 21. I'm sorry, chapter 21, verse 25.
From God.
Albon, can you mute yourself? Thank you. 21:25. We did not send any messenger before you except with the inspiration. There is no God except me. You shall worship me alone. So this is the concept of the overall same religion, same God, and same message, right? This is the La ilaha illallah right here. All the messengers say this. So to argue that Prophet Muhammad came back with a different Sahara, a different message from this that deviates from the divine inspiration that's placed into him by God is the blasphemy, right? And so this proves that all the messengers, all the messengers have this concept of there's no God except God, la ilaha illallah. In addition to this, verse 27 talks about the messengers and says that they do not speak on their own. They strictly follow his commands. So this means the final statements, the final conclusions, the final religious doctrine that's presented by the messengers has to be a correct one. Right? In the capacity of a messenger that's establishing God's religion on earth, they do not speak on their own. And we need to be able to understand this, acknowledge it, and accept it. Right? God's system is very easy. There's this concept, we have to worship God alone. The mechanism, God sends the messengers, and we have to accept whatever the messengers give us. This system has always been the same. That's really the bottom line. That's my comment.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead.
Same thing, with Christianity and Jesus. It's like every messenger prophet came with the same proclamation, and then all of a sudden, God switches it up with Jesus. So it's kind of inconsistent for those who actually have studied the scriptures. I think that's a good point to make to people who proclaim that Jesus is God. It's like why would God randomly just switch it up when all the messengers and prophets had the same message prior to that? I also have a question about 34 and 35, about every soul will taste death. Our bodies are going to die, but what about like the believers not really dying? They just go to heaven. Is this referring to our bodies dying on earth? Or is this referring to like the first death that we had prior to this?
So
I
verse
think it's
35. Oh, good.
I think this is just in reference that look, the body is going to die, but the bigger takeaway is that when we first were brought into this world, we were first put to death. Then we came into this world, so we tasted that first death. But then this concept is we are going to go through that process where our physical bodies will die. Like that's just a reality. But the death, in the sense of the death of the soul, I don't believe that that's what this is indicating. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so in that case, do the disbelievers upon death, do they experience a second death of their soul until the day of judgment?
Correct. Yeah, I believe so. I got a article I'll add to the BC1 chat on this, the two deaths.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, if you look at 228, that's a good example. It says, did I do that right? Yeah. How can you disbelieve in God when you were dead and he gave you life? Then he puts you to death. Then he brings you back to life. Then to him you ultimately return. So it's talking about those who disbelieve, right? That they're going to have two deaths, according to this verse. And there's other ones as well.
Thank you for sharing.
It's interesting, peace be upon everybody. It's interesting that some of the people who argue for reincarnation, they use this verse and they try to say, you know what, so it's just two deaths, so we're kind of coming back to this life or something to that effect. But it's obviously they're missing the fact that we had the first death before coming here. So that's where they're missing.
So someone asked the question for the doctrine of the two deaths. If you're a disbeliever and died at the age of 40, will you experience the second death? Probably. Honestly, you probably will. Like, you're just gonna. Raju brought this example of the guy in the Nutty Putty cave, right? He was under 40, he went to heaven, but he suffered significantly, right? He's upside down, and then he just like his brain exploded basically from all the blood and everything gushing into it. And it was for hours and hours and hours, and he can talk and he's there, he's conscious, and he's just suffering. So I'm like, that's it. I don't believe a believer will die like that, right? Where it's just like 20 hours of conscious suffering and exchange and back and forth and discussion. The examples that we have, Rashad gives two of them, right? He gives the example of Schroeder and Jesus. Schroeder is the guy that had the metal pump as a heart. And Rashad is basically saying when God took the soul from his body, this is in Appendix 22. The moment that God took the soul from his body, he's no longer functioning as who he was. He doesn't have an understanding of the world. He's not in there. The soul is not in there. Similarly, with Jesus, in the same appendix, Rashad talks about how when before Jesus got arrested, his soul was removed. So when they interrogate him, there's no response. The body cannot react to the things that they're asking because it has no capacity to. It has the capacity to be a body that can do bodily functions like moving and motion and sounds and stuff like that, eating maybe, right? But in terms of sitting down and having a discussion about what's going on and what's happening, he's basically saying he can't do that anymore. The body can't do that because the soul is out. So now we're talking about these people that are dying under 40. Their souls are still in their bodies while they're suffering. Now, there obviously could be some exceptions. Maybe some of them is God's more merciful towards others, but generally they're just suffering in their bodies until the body just dies and they experience that
There
death.
are actually, peace be upon you. There are actually many examples. This is one of them, but even like in some of the cartels and stuff like that, before there was a website, bestcore.com, they banned it. It was like live news and real, all the gory stuff that is happening there, young people, being literally butchered alive. So yeah, you can clearly see the amount of pain, and it makes sense to me. In other words, this also shows to me that people, if they think they can do wrong, under age 40, and you got to pay for it. Definitely, we pay for it.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
for wrongdoing.
if they actually so if God allows them to die under the age of 40, are they actually disbelievers despite them proclaiming disbelief?
Yeah,
And
no, they're definitely disbelievers. They're just getting God's mercy.
see, I think people could be tortured souls, for example, like they live a very, very rough life.
That's fine,
Have
but if someone says I'm an atheist or I'm a Sunni and then kills themselves or kills others and they die, like they died in a state of disbelief, like they're disbelievers.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, unconsciously inside, despite their proclamation, there is maybe a actually, like, belief in God, despite what they proclaim. Just like how, for example, a believer can, with a gun up to their head, could say that they disbelieve in the circumstance. Therefore, but it's still not what's in
I
their
mean,
heart.
maybe you could say that for some of them, but to blanket rule say anyone that dies under 40 is truly a believer, I feel like that might be going too far. Like these are disbelievers. It's just that God is merciful towards them.
Yeah,
And that's
I
it.
don't know if we can say one way or the other. We can say that they didn't deserve to go to hell, right? They deserve God's mercy. I see these as the individuals who were kind of swept up in the crowd. That deep down they weren't, disbelievers. I can't say that someone who hasn't had enough time on this planet to make that decision, that whatever it is that they say can be genuinely held against them, right? So yeah, in this worldly sense, they might have appeared to be disbelievers, but again, a big part of that might just be that they didn't have enough time to really go through all the evidence that genuinely make that decision.
Yeah, yeah. They're very interesting individuals. It's a very interesting concept. I noticed that really throws a lot of people through a loop. But once you can look at these individuals through the lens that on some level they are redeemable individuals, then it's interesting to like look at their life. Like Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, in an interview about the murders he committed, he took full ownership. He said the only one to blame is me. And then if you actually follow his life in prison, he ends up becoming a born again Christian and has contact with a priest outside of the church and ends up getting Bibles and is like passing them out through the prison. So like,
I always just
you
think about
know,
it. It's like we don't know the backstory, and then B, like the guy's brain can just be severely scrambled, right? To the point where he didn't have a chance. Like he's not capable of being held responsible to the same caliber. It doesn't mean that we don't hold him accountable in this life, right? But to say that he's eternally damned because his brain's messed up, I think that's a different story.
yeah, yeah. One last thing on that too. It's kind of like, um, it's interesting because you get the souls that uh repented to God before the experience, and they became the submissive roles. And with these individuals that die beneath the age of 40, it's like perhaps their purpose is a part of a greater function in the system. And I wouldn't go as far to say that they're like a play a submissive role, like the animals are like mentally challenged people. But you know, are they in the same position as the humans that live past the age of 40? It's just kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I agree with Brandy. She says the painful death could be payment for their sins. Yes, absolutely. You want to go to heaven? Okay, here's your suffering for the next 5 hours on earth, and then you paid it off, and then you go to heaven. So I agree, but I mean, I look at these people as the same as like monkeys and dogs and trees, and that's just what it is. They came here, they served a function, and then they left, and that's it. But God knows fully what's going on. And I was looking for a comment. Rashad says, for reasons known to him. Does that ring a bell for anybody? Reasons only known to him, something like that. I just can't find it.
Only known to God.
Yeah,
Yeah, he says,
I
It's the
do
age of
remember that.
40 comment.
is that in like a video or something?
No, it's age of 40 verse comment.
I looked at it, it wasn't there.
Oh,
You sure?
It
But
probably
it's
was
just,
in a subjective perspective.
yeah, it says the reasons only known to him. He says something like that. Like
yeah.
that's
Well,
not in
like
the footnote.
for example, like Mike Tyson, he proclaimed submission even though he was sectarian, and it seemed like he was just going for like maybe
Mike Tyson.
yeah, Sunni Islam. He proclaimed being a Muslim. He said he didn't pray. And anyways, but he definitely was a man of the worldly life with his drug addiction and whatnot. And for example, I think God allowed his daughter to die. His daughter got mangled in a treadmill, for example, and died under his supervision while he was busy partying. I think that's how the story goes. And so, like in these circumstances, the soul of his daughter could have. Would we go as far to say that she was a part of like the submissive role and played a part in the greater function of like maybe condemning Mike Tyson for his behavior? Like this was an opportunity for him to reflect on his actions and repent and turn around.
Yeah,
I'll have to
maybe.
make a
Oh, go ahead.
just kind of shift to something less morbid. In verse 23, it says, "He is never to be asked about anything he does, while all others are questioned." This is such a simple concept. Like, God doesn't, we don't negotiate with God. Like, you'll see this premise, it's popular in Jewish studies, but then also in Hadith, which is heavily influenced by like this Talmudic influence, where individuals are arguing and negotiating and doing a back and forth with God. In the Hadith, they say that the prophet, when he was in paradise, God gave him 50 salat. And then he goes back and Moses says, "Oh man, he gave you 50? That's crazy. Go back and negotiate that down," right? And then he does this back and forth and they settle on 5. This is just such a blasphemy against God. And this verse just kind of eliminates that concept. It says he is never to be asked about anything he does while all others are questioned. God's words are absolute. We can't change his words. We can't change his mind. These concepts don't apply to God.
Peace be upon you all. I have a comment on verse 21, 22, and maybe to 24. The subheading or title says one God, speaks about one God. Yes, and that is very accurate because if we look at the verses, it's talking about us human beings. If we have found gods on earth who can create like God has created, we can never find anyone. Even the gods that the people today hold on as their gods that they worship, they themselves were created by God. And all these gods could never overthrow God. In Surah 17:42, they can never overthrow him. He created them. He created the sun, the moon, the heavens, and the earth. None of them could create any of these. They themselves were created. You see? And God is saying in verse 22, if there were in them, the heavens and the earth, other gods beside God, there would have been chaos. Chaos is if assuming Jesus or any other God created the sun, and God also had his own son, there will be chaos because each of them will be controlling where the sun will be, working against the other. But none of them created the sun or the moon. So if any of these gods created anything besides any of that the God has created, definitely there will be chaos. And this is why there is no chaos. This is why there is no challenge. Nobody can ask God any question because he created all these things. And none of them could create anything. And this is why 23 it's saying he's never to be asked about anything he does. When God created the sun, today, even the scientists or the moon, they are still studying the sun, discovering so many other things. So their understanding, their knowledge could have never been that, powerful to have challenged God why he did this. But they can only make discoveries for the world to benefit from what God has created out of the sun or the moon or the heavens and the earth. Thank you.
I wanted to add something in regards to that. Just these first, 3 verses where it says it's talking about God's creation. If there was other gods, there'd be chaos, and then God is never to be questioned about anything. We were talking about this on the VC the other day. Imagine this: someone says, "God, can you please reduce the Earth's gravitational pull, towards the moon just by 1%?" Hey God, can you change the axis of the Earth just by a fraction of a percent, or any other of these like what do you call it, universal constants? We know that if God was to grant anyone that prayer, the entire universe would basically just go to nothing, right? That these are perfectly designed by God's decree. That's a given. We realize this outside of our depth of understanding. But then when it comes to our own lives, oftentimes we question God's wisdom. God, why would you allow this to happen to us? God, why didn't this happen instead, and whatnot? And we don't realize that God, just as much care as he gave in the construction of the universe, how much care he put into the what's going to happen in each of our lives. You have the example in the Quran, the couple, they're praying to God for a good child, and then when God gives them a child, they turn that child into an idol. It's as if, God, please give us this child. God grants them a good child, and then they say, okay, God, we got it from here. Thank you very much. And it's this aspect that we think, we're in control, or we think we know better. But true submission means that we submit to God under all conditions, that we don't question God's wisdom. If something transpired a certain way, it was meant to transpire that way. And we just have to accept that fact that God has a good reason for it. That's all.
Praise God.
Okay.
Can you remind us
So
where we read from?
yeah, 21 to 35. Okay. So we don't question God's wisdom. And so there's this concept of just kind of going along with things, right? It's kind of like 5101. This is a difficult thing. We've had this conversation this week, actually. I seek out that you God for say the rejected. Oh, you who believe. Do not ask about matters which, if revealed to you prematurely, would hurt you. If you ask about them in light of the Quran, they will become obvious to you. God has deliberately overlooked them. God is forgiver, clement. So there's topics that are not appropriate to be questioned about prematurely. Similarly, we are not to question God's wisdom. I personally believe the angels sinned when they questioned God's wisdom of placing a Khalifa on earth, irrespective of who they think it was. I think submission is really deep. There's a verse that says we're delivering a heavy message, and I think a lot of people don't understand the gravity of how deep this message is. They have a superficial understanding of the message and what it entails, but it's not actually the full picture. And the more and more time I'm spending pondering on it, interacting, studying it, I'm realizing how deep and comprehensive submission is as a package presenting to the, being presented to the masses. Chapter 73, verse 5 says, we will give you a heavy message. It is a very heavy message, and there are concepts that are extremely problematic. He says, do you have a good example of someone that fits this verse? The irony of your question is that by asking that question in front of 70 people, you're actually putting people at risk of violating this concept and spirit of the very verse we're talking about. So I don't think it's wise for me to address that, right? And I thought of a few topics in my head, but I think when it comes to God's wisdom and not questioning it, I think you have to establish something is true and then try to understand it. This is how I guess, get to things personally. So I established submission is true, it's right. Now I have to understand, okay, how are all these things in submission making sense? So you start with the largest or the most general conclusions, and then you fine tune them and you get to more and more precise and specific conclusions on a more exact level. So imagine if you're like sculpting, the sculptors use the most blunt objects at the beginning to get off all the excess material. Then they use tools that are able to deal with finer details, right? And so that's a good way to apply in our life when it comes to submission, is we have to make the determination as a whole, is this correct? Okay, here's the miracle code 19. Here's the broad claims of messengership, right? Whatever aspects. Okay, is the overall package acceptable to me? Does that mean every single item in the package needs to be acceptable to me in this moment? No. But then we can get into, okay, how we can better understand different aspects of the religion. Sorry for my long comment.
Peace be upon you. I wanted to also talk about what Brother Naveed is saying, illuminating something like asking questions prematurely, right? Not waiting for God's wisdom to unfold. And Brother Trevor, he asked for like an example of this. I cited chapter 2, verse 67. Moses said to this people, God commands you to sacrifice a heifer. They said, are you mocking us? He said, God forbid that I should behave like the ignorant ones. Right. And, it's funny Moses says that because he himself has sometimes, has once before acted like them. When God gives him a command, he makes excuses or questions a little bit of the wisdom. But so he himself has been enlightened. He says, God forbid I behave like the ignorant ones. And then they continue to query the command. What kind of heifer? Yeah, what color? What age, etc. And then later on, we learn what the purpose of the killing of the heifer was to revive a dead person, right? In chapter 2, verse 72. Right, and so a similar issue, like God may issue a command, he may inform the angels, hey, I'm about to do this, and they're like, whoa, why? Right, but we need just unwavering obedience and submission when God commands something, because God knows that we are sometimes ignorant on why he commands stuff. When we question, it's not a good thing. Right? God could fulfill your curiosity if need be, and he did not.
I have a different take on this, right?
Go ahead.
For me, the position of like he's not to be questioned in what he does is a law, right? It's a fact, and it's not. It is obviously a commandment, but a law cannot be less than a commandment, right? If I said to you, you cannot break through this wall, it's impossible. It's insurmountable. So when he's saying this, it's just saying that it simply cannot happen. Imagine you don't cook at all. You have no idea how to cook. And then the best chef in the world is in the kitchen. He's like, throwing up flames, putting snails, whatever, right? You don't know what's happening, but you know for a fact what's coming out of it is going to be amazing. You don't question the process. And for everything God does, it's novel. Everything he creates is something that has never been created before. Because he produces it, he creates it, then he repeats it. So when he asks a question, it's not about the fact that it's an inviolable law. He's deliberately asking, this is before the operation, before the cooking, right? If the chef comes to you and says, oh, do you like snails? And you're like, no, I don't like snail. It doesn't matter. He's still doing it. But he asks you that question. And it's the same when God asked Moses, what is it that's in your hand, right? It's obvious God, Lord of the universe, knows it was a staff. But to God, anything can be anything because he can say to it, be, and it is. And God is elucidating to Moses that he controls matter, right? At an atomic level, at a creation level, whatever that is. So this is simply a law. When he was creating human or placing the Khalifa on earth, that process, nobody understands. It's a novel process, right? If he's creating, I don't know, a new being and they don't speak, it would be the last thing that they do is the creation questioning God itself. nor other creations questioning God, because they don't know what's going on. So my position is, God asked the question deliberately, not for input, obviously, but to showcase the difference in omniscience. He wouldn't have asked the question if it wasn't pertinent.
Peace be upon you. I also look at it in another perspective. Maybe this question that God is saying we should not ask God such a question is simply telling us that we should not challenge God on what He does. When God creates anything, He created it perfectly. So for anybody, even out of curiosity, you can only seek knowledge on how God does certain things. You ask God simple question, but not to challenge Him in a way that you think you can do better than that or something like that. We see Abraham also ask God for reassurance, something like that. We can ask God for reassurance. We can ask God to enlighten us, to educate us on what He does, on His creations, but not to challenge Him. So looking at this question, when He says, do not ask Him questions, it's like it's such a question that would, look like a challenge. You're challenging God. So this is just to add to what other brothers have said. This is the way I look at it. So thank you.
I wanted to make another comment. I feel I've only been commenting on the first three verses. I want to talk about the fourth, but there's so much good material here. In 21:24, it talks about they have found other gods beside him. Have they found other gods beside him? Say, show me your proof. This is the message to my generation, consummating all previous messages. This concept of gods beside him, people think that this means that you have to acknowledge this other entity as a god beside God. But the Quran informs us that simply taking religious guidance from any other entity other than God is a form of idol worship. So in 931, it says they have set up their religious leaders and scholars as lords instead of God. So simply saying, hey, God says one thing in the scripture, but these religious leaders, scholars are saying something else. If you take their testimony over God's, you've just set up a partner with God. So in 619 is like a good example of this. It says, say, whose testimony is the greatest? This Quran is God's testimony. Say God's. He's a witness between me and you that this Quran has been inspired to me to preach it to you and whomever reaches. Then here it says, indeed, you bear witness there are other gods beside God. Say, I do not testify as you do. There's only one God, and I disown your idolatry. So here you think about it. We have the verbatim statements of God in this Quran. Someone comes and says, hey, actually, the prophet said X, Y, and Z. Check out how reliable my narrators are. The second someone accepts this other source over God's word, they're setting up another God beside God. And I'm going to give one last example. This is in 6:121, where it says, do not eat from that upon which the name of God has not been mentioned, for it's an abomination. The devils inspired their allies to argue with you. And here it says, if you obey them, you will be idol worshippers. This is a very simple premise. If God tells you X, says, hey, the ablution is 4 steps, right? And then some other source comes and tells you, actually, those steps, you have to alter the steps and add, 4 or 5 more. If you accept that second testimony over God's statement in the Quran, you've just set up another God beside God, right? It's that simple. But the Muslim masses and most people, they've really watered down what the definition of idol worship and setting up a God beside God constitutes. Because we saw in the previous verse, if you ask them who created the heavens and earth, they're going to say God. But then their actions indicate that they believe otherwise. That's all.
Praise God for the Quran.
So
Go ahead,
how
brother.
should
Go
we
ahead.
oh sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We got Brother Al Hamstrom trying to speak. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, God bless you. It's a really important. Like, I just want to double down on what Brother Peter is saying, right? And how do I put this? This is really good for self-reflection. This whole thing of making sure our actions, our words, and our emotions kind of line up. Because one thing that like always scared the crap out of me as a submitter was when I would read in the Quran and it would say like we would lead people on without them realizing it, and we would adorn it in their eyes so they think they're on the right path. And I'm like, it would scare me because I'm like, what if I'm doing that? How do I know? Because God is telling you, if I mislead you like this, you're gonna think you're on the right path. And I'm like, well, do I think I'm on the right path? Yeah, I do. So how do I know? It was such a, like it messed with my mind so much, and Satan would try to tell you, yeah, you're on the wrong path, you're on the wrong path, and all this kind of stuff. But that's exactly it, though. Is one way to, and the thing is, sometimes I would find out that I was doing something wrong, and I didn't realize I was doing it wrong. I'm like, oh, but I was doing something that thinking it was right, but it was actually wrong. And how I kind of identified that by God's grace was just reflecting on my actions, my emotions, and stuff like this. Like, okay, if something like, hey, I'm doing this thing that I believe is an act of righteousness, but it makes me angry. I get impatient. I feel like I have to do something, and I'll just reflect on like, hey, why do you feel you have to do something? For example, like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this, or else. Like, what happens if you don't? Right? Like, do, is the outcome not going to happen? Do you feel like you're controlling everything? Or, okay, fine, if you don't do it, nobody's saying don't do it, but hey, don't do it right now. What happens if you don't do it right now? What if you wait an hour? Wait till the next day to do something or say something. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like, do you think like that the outcome will not come out a certain way because you didn't put some kind of input into it? It's like, no. God controls everything. God controls all the outcomes. And what I realized was the way I was acting was as if I didn't believe that, right? That level of impatience, that level of urgency, that level of anxiety that I have to do it now and all this kind. It was reflecting someone who does not believe God is in full control and God is doing everything and God is the one who controls the outcome. And I had to accept that, like, yeah, man, I'm not acting like a submitter right now, right? If I did, I wouldn't be all anxious and upset and stuff like this. And it worked in many other ways. So God bless you, Peter. Yeah, it's you have to really make sure everything we do and act it actually reflects someone who is a believer and believes in all God's qualities.
Thanks for everybody joining. Chapter 21, verse 21 through 35 is what we read. We're still on these verses for the next 12 minutes before the announcement time. I believe Mr. Trevor was trying to make a comment, and also Brother Ibrahim Wachiko.
Okay. Still on one God, verse 25 to 27 reassures our minds and our beliefs, telling God sent Jesus before Muhammad. And God knows that the people, his followers, Jesus' followers, would see him, that is, those who disbelieve, would see Jesus the way God created Jesus as as someone that is maybe I don't know how to put it, a God beside God, or because of the way the wisdom used in creating Jesus. And God is confirming to Prophet Muhammad in verse 25. He said, "We did not send any messenger before you except with the inspiration. There is no God except me." This is what God has taught Jesus when he came as a messenger of God to preach to his people. Jesus recognized God as his God, and he preached about the oneness of God and preached that God alone is God and he alone shall be worshipped. Throughout the most of the quotes in the Bible that we have seen Jesus spoke, this is exactly his words. And so God is telling Prophet Muhammad here that all of them, the messengers, all the messengers shall worship him alone. And all the believers also shall worship God alone. But yet, 26 says, yet they said, the most gracious has begotten a son. You see, out of God's grace, he created Jesus in the way he created him. But yet, people out of disbelief or lack of knowledge and understanding of God still consider Jesus to be a son of God because he created him in the way he created him without a father. But today, praise be to God for the Quran, we are able to distinguish, you know, between God and his creations. Glory be to him. All messengers are his honored servants. This is the way God has honored all his messengers in a different way. He honored Jesus by making him that to deliver his message, knowing that he's going to face challenges, and God supported him with the Holy Spirit. Muhammad, God created his own way because he knows that he is going to face different challenges, and he supported him. Moses also, with the parting of the Red Sea and all of that. Today, we have the 19 miracle, the code 19, which is a perpetual miracle of the Quran. We must always glorify God. They never speak on their own. Whatever the messengers must speak, it is a direct message from God. We see this in Surah 72, verse 26, 28. They come with specific message to the world. So praise God, all his messengers are honored by him, and they cannot be equated by God. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on 2130. Seek what you got from Satan and rejected. Did the unbelievers, the Big Bang Theory confirmed, did the unbelievers not realize that the heavens and the earth used to be one solid mass? That we exploded into existence, and from water we made all living things. Would they believe? Okay, so the first part of this is about the Big Bang, right?
Correct.
This is a big deal. This fact alone proves the Quran is from God. Now, does this prove that chapter 50 is from God? No. But this proves that this book is not an ordinary book. By just looking at uh, this verse, there's knowledge in here that is extraterrestrial, it's out of this world. Big Bang was presented as a theory. Let's see. Does anyone know off the top of their head? No? Yes?
Like the 60s, 70s, I think was one
Yeah,
of.
I thought it was earlier than that.
No, no,
Well,
it's recent. It's by Edwin Hubble. He discovered that there's a red shifting in all of the galaxies in the spectrum of light.
It's
It suggests,
1927. It's
yeah,
1927. So it's earlier than or
but it's still a
19.
theory. I mean, for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Quran, it's
Yeah,
proven.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's proven in the
scientifically, we
Quran.
don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little earlier than that. So it's over 100 years. It said it first came out, I guess, 1922. Alexander Friedman, and then Edwin Hubble. Yeah, 1929, Edwin Hubble, right? So, but the point I'm making is, okay, so 200 years ago, it's laughable to say that, uh, oh, so everything we see is caused from an explosion, right? This is silly. This is something that just doesn't make sense. The water, the trees, the stars, the planets, whatever. The Quran says this. The Quran says everything came from one point, and like some people try to challenge on the Arabic, but the Arabic wording, we could go through it. Like it's very precise. It's very appropriate. The meanings are all there, right? So this is a divine book right here. Show me another book that has such clear, comprehensive scientific um, information from long ago, right? So to me, things like this verse should cause someone to seriously consider the Quran is from God. And then you can get into Code 19 and other stuff when it comes to, okay, how is it intact, or how do you know all of it, or this and that, you know. So I just wanted to point that out for this verse, 30.
There's a verse, 40:57. It says, "The creation of the heavens and the earth is even more awesome than the creation of the human being, but most people do not know." So I don't know if you're able to talk about it, but the fine tuning of the creation of the universe. This is one of the strongest arguments pointing that this
God.
this universe was designed. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, God willing, I can try. So the idea of this fine tuning, when you look into math, basically, it's calculated using something called entropy. And entropy is just a measure of disorder in the universe. When you go out into the outer space, Brother Peter was talking about the universal constants and stuff. And some of the universal constants is the Boltzmann constant, which is kind of the temperature, kind of like the lukewarm temperature of the sky, not the sky, sorry, the outer space. What this means is that at some point you can draw back in time this singularity. But what you have to understand about the singularity is that for the laws of physics to exist, there's something called phase space that must be precisely tuned. Imagine you exploded a bomb, right? And I don't know, it was in an apple or some building or whatever. Now this bomb has to explode in a perfect kind of way, perfect. It has to create like a spherical shape to create space, time, and everything else within the concept of what we have. And this probability is calculated as 10 to the 10 to the 1,000. This number is astronomical. It's actually e to the 10 to the 1,000. It's beyond calculable. And to put perspective, what happens when you put an exponent over itself? Yes. So for example, if you say 10 to the 3, that's 1,000, right? Because it's 3 zeros after the 1. But if you say 10 to the 10 to the 3, that's 1,000 zeros after that number, which is a significant shift in the degree of improbabilities. And that's the precision that scientists acknowledge. Every scientist, every reasonable scientist acknowledges. I love Myla. I can't speak, but it's astronomically improbable. Sorry,
Praise
when I
God.
stop talking, they stop talking. What is this, huh? You guys are messing with me. Yeah, it's beyond compute, but every reasonable scientist, everyone who values math, science, and everything else, they say, you just give me one miracle and I'll explain the rest. And that's what the atheists, agnostics do.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, something is the gravitational constant. I think the number is 1 out of 10 to the 60th, meaning that if you put 0.00060 zeros, 1 delta, you wouldn't have a universe. It's not that the gravity would be different. It's like, no, the universe would just either expand too fast or collapse upon itself. So all these constants have to be perfectly calibrated. If one of them is even off by 1 iota, the entire universe ceases to exist. It's not like, oh, we just have a different, functional universe. Like, no, you wouldn't have a universe. So all these things have to be perfectly calibrated. What else is interesting is in the same verse it says, "And from water we made all living things." Like this is something that's universally understood now, but at that time to make that claim that water is the ingredient for life, that it possesses unique qualities that are essential for life, being proclaimed in a book 1400 years ago, this is a bold claim that ends up being true. And you can say, oh, well, everyone knew about water. It's like, okay, well, why didn't it say earth or wind or fire? Right? It explicitly says water, which we know is the essential ingredient if you want to find any kind of a life form. And then it says, we place on earth stabilizers. Like, so in the Quran, there's the term mountain and then there's the term stabilizers. And stabilizer is something like a peg. You're holding it in place. And this is something that wasn't understood until they had satellites in space, that we saw that the landmass, it has what are those called, plate tectonics. Earth is the only planet in the solar system that has plate tectonics, where you have these plates that are shifting, and when they collide, they form mountains, and those mountains hold these plates in place. But it also allows us to get access to all the minerals and the elements that are inside the crust of the Earth. So it's all part of God's perfect design. And then it says we render the sky a guarded ceiling. It just happens that the 95% of the core of the Earth is iron. And when the Earth is rotating, this creates a magnetic field that protects a lot of the cosmological radiation that could obliterate life. Then in addition, we have the thick atmosphere that does the same thing. It blocks out harmful rays and it lets in the exact band of visible light that's necessary for life and photosynthesis. And I'll just add one last thing. Apologies for going long, but this is the really interesting. It says, and he is the one who created the night and the day, the sun and the moon, each floating in its own orbit. And some people, like I've heard atheists say, oh, this doesn't mean floating. You guys are reading it. It just means sailing because it's the same word. But the way that this word, this expression, each in its orbit, is written in Arabic, it's a palindrome. I'm putting an image because otherwise it's might be difficult to understand. But if you look, so the spelling is Kaf, Lam, Fe, Ya, Fa, Lam, Kaf. So palindrome is a word that can be written forward and backward, as if these are orbiting within themselves. Right? So anyone is saying that, oh no, this is just sailing, you're not reading it correctly. It's like, okay, well, isn't that quite a coincidence that it's written in a way as if it's orbiting within itself, even in the text? So we're at 10:30 my time, but in the
Yeah,
the
we got some.
section,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say we're at the halfway point. We just want to make some announcements. Um, praise God on the orbit thing. That's really cool. I wanted to make a few announcements. So I have my weekly discussion. It's kind of like a lesson, but it's open for discussion on Saturdays, um, on the politics and submission. Is just taking and looking at the world through the lens of the Quran and studying and analyzing how we can interpret things better in light of the Quran. I'm putting it in VC1 chat if you want to sign up for that event, get a notification. Sorry, can I ask the mods to just keep an eye on muting people that make noise? I apologize. We just mute people that are not. Yeah, okay. So yeah. So I put that in the chat. Oh, for some reason it's not loading properly, but yeah, I don't know why it's broken. It says events over. One of the developers or moderators if can fix that. But basically, regardless of how, if whatever this event thing is fixed or not, every Saturday at 7 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock Pacific, and 8 o'clock Central. There's a discussion and kind of lesson and overview on politics and submission. I wanted to give a chance to Brandy and Yara talk about their progress in the ladies' night. That's every Friday night. I'm gonna put the event for that in the VC1 dash chat. I highly recommend everyone attending. I haven't attended, obviously, but I think it's a good opportunity. Go ahead, you guys.
Peace be upon you, everyone. We had the ladies' night again. It was really nice. Praise God. I highly recommend every women to women to join the event. It's very it's a good way to connect with each other, and everyone, every woman is welcome.
I would like to add, peace everyone, that the topic was what all women love to talk about, or most women, I'll say most. Love and romance and marriage, and how our perspective on relationships has changed and our expectations, prior to submission and what it is now if you're married. We heard stories on, their journey from, when they met their husband and, the journey up until now. Quite inspiring stories to just kind of learn from and just get a better sense of like maybe what you're looking for. It was really fruitful. These women's meets are really insightful and inspiring. And I love being able to connect with the women. Like the women are more soft spoken, and you don't hear many women talking throughout the week. So just to hear people you don't hear very often, and just like you can find the parallels where you kind of match people, or can relate with other submitters. Sometimes we can just forget just how alike we really are. So and get to feeling a little lonely. So it's really nice to be able to connect with people you just, you may have not even noticed before, but here they came to women's night, and, now you made another friend. So I highly recommend coming and enjoying the fun with us. God bless you all.
That's wonderful. And that event is only open to verified females, people that, so not anybody can join that channel. Even women, you have to be personally verified to be able to go in there, which is good. So it's a safe place. And it sounds like you guys are having a good time and building connections as an established community. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
do want to add that it's not all just chit chat. It is commemorating God as well. Anytime we talk about God and this religion and submitters and such, like, we are meditating on God, and then we seem to like be going through verses about midway, and then we always end our women's night with zikr. So it's not just chit chat; it's also worshiping God.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys go out of your way. There's comprehensive programming. I think you and Yara spent a couple hours planning the event, putting stuff together, and then making a schedule, and you try to go by them. That's really wonderful. And then you ended off with the commemoration. That's fantastic. God bless you. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Do we have additional announcements? I could just say for the YouTube channel, it's been pretty good. Um, let's see. The uh, Basmala video, if you haven't seen it, it's really good. I know I've mentioned this before, but I would share with people. It just hit 76,000 views. And I would just be really supportive of our content. I don't have additional announcements right now.
Peace.
Anybody?
I'll add,
Go ahead.
God willing. So I'll start with media first. So just released a new video. This is on our channel submission server. It talks about free will and agency, and basically dives into the psychological and physical aspect of this. A lot of people say, where's my agency in life? If God controls and knows everything, so that it dives into that topic, and it's only on that channel at the moment. We're trying to rev it back up. It has 150,000, I want to say, subscribers. So the more activity we put into it, like immediately, if the subscribers inadvertently had their notifications on, they're alerted to this video, right? So it's already getting more traffic than a brand new channel would. So go support that. Go have a look at it. I found it enjoyable. And to top up the Bismillah video, we are working on the preservation mechanism. This is Brother Salami mainly is the lead. Jonathan, Hadith Critic, and myself and a lot of others are putting input to this. It's going to be another banger, God willing. It's quite deep. We go hard with the challenging of the false verses and everything else. We're not playing around. It's going to go straight into challenging those dogmas, and we present evidence as well. And yeah, if you ever feel like you need a little bit of submission in your life, whether it's content in YouTube, articles, whatever, I'm sure Peter will talk about his articles as well, but I enjoy going through that, and it gives me like great insight, and it's very poetic as well. Some of these articles, can't wait to use them for sermons. The other functions that I want to talk about is the bot. So the bot has had several revamps. Now, if you use Quran, it's a bit more presentable, let's say, and it automatically links to you have to use the submission bot, by the way. So it automatically links the Quranic Labs or the submission app. If you click the verse, it will open the site, which helps you navigate through the English or the Arabic word by word, whatever the case may be. So that's one expansion. And then I can't remember if I mentioned it last week. We have search articles. So search articles at the moment is specifically for articles by Peter, Quran Talk. So for example, we spoke about the iron miracle or magnetic wave by Earth or something like that. If you just type in, some nebulous term like that, it will bring the article most relevant to your query. So here it's the article he wrote about iron. Right? He also made a video about this, which was awesome to watch. So that just peruses 900 plus articles that Peter's written. That's just how prolific he is. Praise God. And on top of that, we also have a new function. I'm trying to remember. What did I just add? I've forgotten. It'll come back to me, God willing. Once I remember, I'll say it. But specifically, if you're an editor, if you want to help the submission movement, make videos, edit, stuff like that, this is the best time ever, right? We have amazing ability and team, right? You want to generate AI audio, we can do that. You want to generate animation, we have that function, literally like 3D animations type stuff. So we have all the utility. If you need the skill training, as long as you have the time, the motivation to serve God, God willing, we can assist in that direction. So that's all until I remember whatever that was, the one bit.
We want to announce the meeting on September. AAA here. I see Rose is deafened. You guys are really pressuring me to come to the event. I really have a lot to do and have a lot going on in my own life. I wasn't planning on coming to New York City this September, but apparently, if this is going down, then I mean, I guess I would have to come, and I want to come, and I encourage other people to come. This is in what, September 12th? Friday, September 12th. So 12th, 13th, 14th would be this event. It's a meeting for the believers to meet
Sorry,
each
what's this
other.
meeting? This in America, September?
Yeah,
Oh,
September 12th. It's a meeting for submitters to gather. And I think one argument, which is not a bad one actually, is that the location, because we have a lot of people. I mean, for Europe it would be easier, and also for a lot of people on the East Coast. A good distance. Plus, you got Toronto, Canada, right there. So it's like you got tons of people within 5 or 6 hour flight, all right there. Less than that. Rose is deaf now, but she, I guess, has been the one announcing it. Triple A is not. Triple A is another planner. He's not here. If anyone else knows about it, please speak up. Otherwise, you could just contact me and I can get more information for you. Um, let's see. Anything else? I know I had more announcements. I just forgot. Oh, I might do. I did a TikTok live on, was it Friday? After what, months since January, and so I might do more of those at night. Maybe we'll see, God willing. But I do think it's
what
important
was the
to
turnout last time? The very
what.
last time you did it. What was the turnout like? How many viewers and how many of us joined?
It was really good. Friday night.
It'd be ideal if that could be like a
We had a lot of
consistent
people.
thing.
We had over, yeah, maybe we could just make it every Friday night. I don't know. We had over 50 live viewers. It was really big. So it was a big event, and so just keep chipping away, inviting people to the server, proclaiming submission, unity, development is really good. Brother Amin K. Oh, also they're doing a really good job. So they added another Quran study in Persian on Saturdays. So they had one on Mondays. Now they're adding another one on Saturday, and I just see things moving along. It's really good. So God bless you, Brother Amin, and everyone that's supporting him. The Saturday Quran studies and also the Monday ones. Things are just moving in a really good direction. I just think things are coming together, coalescing. So
Praise God, yeah, we're doing good. We had more requests for debate, but we're trying to get the right people in the debate because if we get the right people, we'll get more publicity, so to speak.
yeah, no, can't. I'm happy to participate in that debate. It's a Persian debate.
Yeah, it is a
Um,
Persian debate right now. I don't know. We're planning it for doing it Monday, but I think you're working on Monday, right? So we'll see what happens.
yeah,
I
what
like
time?
to. So probably we got at 10 o'clock. It will probably be about 11 o'clock East my time. It'll probably be your like 12 noon.
Noon. I don't know. I cannot. I'm at work
But
or busy. I cannot.
I'm trying to
Mm.
get this. I'm trying to see if I can get. There's a more famous Sunni Persian or uh, guy that everybody referred to him in the TV is called Calame, which is Word.
Yeah.
You know him. So see if I can get a hold of him or two on a schedule something on a weekend. That would be good.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll do so. That would be great.
Yeah,
So
that'd be great.
because he's more known, and then if we get a debate with him, with either in our platform or even his platform, we can get the recording of it, or we can record it ourselves and then reflect it in our own platforms. That would be good.
Very good. Thank you so much. Have an announcement. We have a new submitter now. Miss P came out publicly as a submitter recently. Congratulations, Miss P. That's wonderful news. I know you were going back and forth. You're kind of a Koranist for a while. Go ahead. What's up?
Peace, brother.
Yeah, can you briefly share your journey with us? Yeah, just very briefly. Yeah, what's it like?
Yeah, I left Sunnism in November, went to Quranism, and then came to submission server 9 weeks ago, I think. 10 weeks ago. And then officially changed my role 10 days ago.
Yeah, that's really good news. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Praise
Thank
God. What was a deciding factor that pushed you over the top?
What do you mean? Sorry, can you just
Yeah,
ask
what's
that
the thing that
question
what
again?
convinced you? What was the most important thing that convinced you? What are the biggest things to convince you?
You can't deny Rashad as a messenger. That's it.
Mhm.
I think I was, because I'd never heard of Rashad before I came on the server. And then I looked into it and I thought he's a messenger. And everybody was saying to me, no, he's not. My Quran alone people. So I was trying to reject him, but I couldn't. The more I was trying to reject him, the more it was confirming to me that he's a messenger. And that's it.
Well, praise God. That's really good news. I think you have wisdom. You made a knowing decision to embrace submission, and you consciously made this determination. And I highly encourage anyone on the fence to ponder on the factors that caused this decision.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think I've known for a while, to be honest, but then I didn't want to be one of the hypocrites who believes half of Rashad's message. So I wanted to know in my heart that I'm going to fully embrace. So then that's why it took me a bit longer.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's why hypocrites are so bad, because they repel so many people.
I just forgot to mention one thing, mashallah, for the sister coming to submission. Just one other thing about the Persian. There's a lady, I don't know if there's any Farsi speaking people here. There's a lady that messaged me and it's on the server, and her name is Fariba, and she's doing, she's started printing, or they're organizing to do underground printing of the Qurans in Iran, because a lot of people ask about how can get a Quran in Iran, and a lot of people say, you can't get it, you got to use your app and stuff like that. So she started doing printings as well for people who actually wants to have physical books. And so this is a good news for anybody. So if anybody's asking, you come across anybody asking about printed Quran in Iran, we can, and as a trusted person, we can get someone, very well will be able to perhaps provide a copy. God willing.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much. Any other announcements? Okay, if there's no more announcements, we can just continue the discussion. Okay.
Go back to the verses.
Sure. Do you have something to
Slash
talk about?
open
Go ahead.
study. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment. Can you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
brother.
God bless you. Verse, okay, 28, so 21, 28, inshallah. God is talking to us about all his messengers, that they cannot intercede on the day of judgment. So anybody who is looking at them or any of them interceding on his behalf will be deceiving himself. I usually ask those who believe in that the messengers would intercede on their behalf. The question I usually ask them is this: why would even a messenger of God, or who would a messenger of God supposed to intercede on behalf of? Is it a believer or a disbeliever? A believer, I believe a believer would not seek for any intercession because he dies as a believer, and a believer is guaranteed eternal happiness, eternal grace by God. It's only the disbelievers that may want to seek intercession at God or the messengers. So let us look at who is a disbeliever by the definition of the Quran. A disbeliever is one who torments God's messengers. A disbeliever is one who disbelieves in God's revelation. A disbeliever is one who, challenge God. A disbeliever is one who completely disagree with God. So why would he seek intercession from the messenger that he has rejected in this world? Why is it when he sees God's retribution and realizes that he is wrong, that he wants to seek intercession? And why would he even seek intercession from a messenger instead of from God? So the answer is in one of the answers is in Surah 25, verse 4. No, Surah. Surah 25, 17 to 19. If we look at the possibility of the messengers not able to intercede, I think for those who believe in God and read the Quran constantly would, realize or believe that messengers can intercede on their behalf. Let me read quickly these verses. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Seek refuge of God from the devil of the rejected. On the day when he summons them together with the idols they have set up beside God, he would say, have you misled these servants of mine, or did they go astray on their own? They will say, be you glorified. It was not right for us to set up any idols beside you, but you allowed them to enjoy together with their parents. Consequently, they disregarded the message that authority wicked people. They have disbelieved in the message you have given them, and consequently, you can neither protect them from the retribution they have incurred, nor can you help them in any way. Anyone among you who commits evil, we will commit him to a severe retribution. So this is an indication that the messengers, it is stated in verse 28, they will be worried about their own necks. So a messenger who is worried about his own neck on the day of judgment would not even listen to you when you go to him as a disbeliever to intercede on your behalf. Thank you.
I wanted to comment regarding the same first 4 verses. regarding this concept of found gods on earth who create, and then tying it back with 24 where it talks about the message. This is the message to the generation, consummating all previous messages. It reminds me of this verse in 1788 regarding the challenge for the creation of the Quran. It says, say, if all the humans and all the jinns band together in order to produce a Quran like this, they can never produce anything like it, no matter how much assistance they lent one another. If you ask the traditionalist, hey, can anyone, all the humans, all the jinns band together to produce a Quran like this? They're going to say no. But the idea is that this is just one of the names of the Quran. Like the Quran goes by different names. It's the reminder, right? Can the humans and jinns produce a reminder like this? They'll say no. You say, okay, it's the Furqan, the book of law. And you ask them, hey, can the humans and jinns produce a book of law like this? They'll say no. But the Quran's also called the best hadith. They say, hey, can you produce a hadith like this? And then they're like, yeah, actually they believe they can. And this goes to show again that they don't believe God is the creator. They don't believe in the hereafter. They believe that there's other gods beside God. I'm going to be sharing this meme that Jack made. It says, Quran, let them produce a hadith like this if they are truthful. 5234 Bukhari, challenge accepted. So we hold people account to their actual actions, not just their high level beliefs. They say, oh yeah, we believe God's the only creator, we believe God created the heaven and the universe, but then they go on to accept that there's other gods out there who can give them laws never decreed by God. Anyone else want to comment or ask about anything regarding the Quran?
Peace, yes.
Peace, brother.
I'd like to comment on verse 30, add to the reflections on verse 30. As it was previously stated, the explosion, the Big Bang explosion, was extraterrestrial. So in the second part of that verse, it says, and from water we made all living things, which, let's say, someone may interpret as terrestrial, something that takes place obviously in the earth. And one of the things that comes to mind when I read this verse is that all of the elements emerged out of or with, God knows best, from the Big Bang. So there's actually a connection between the Big Bang and God's provision of water on earth for all living creatures. When we drink water, we don't think about the fact that we are drinking 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. And hydrogen and oxygen are elements. And this also brings to mind the verse in the Quran where God says, on the day of judgments, the oceans will be set aflame. And many people say, what do you mean? God is awesome, all powerful, They never in their mind conceive of a water burning. What do you mean, water burning? But when you look at this in terms of what God reveals about his creation, water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. And we know that hydrogen and helium are 2 major elements or what have you with regard to the sun. The constant metanuclear explosions. My point is that there is actually a connection between the Big Bang and our world. All of the universes are larger than our own universe, and all of their elements and the laws that God has created in them all are interrelated. They each have their own laws, and everything that God has provided for us, God says, the human gets their provision from the heavens. Peace. Thank you. Praise God.
Great comment. I want to highlight the second part of verse 24. I'll put it in the chat again. It states, no, 21, 24, wrong verse. 21, 24. It says, have they found other gods beside him? Show me your proof. This is the message to my generation, consummating all previous messages. Indeed, most of them do not recognize the truth. This is why they're so hostile. What's fascinating is when someone is reminded of God's revelations, God's messages, if they become hostile, it's actually showing that it's a direct hit to their ego. And that's why, many traditions, when this is brought up to them, they become violent and belligerent. And if you look, this is actually a sign of disbelief. So in Surah 22, verse 72, it states, let me pull it up. The subtitle says, violence and belligerent signs of disbelief. It says, when our revelations are recited to them clearly, you recognize wickedness on the face of those who disbelieve. They almost attack those who recite our revelations to them. Say, shall I inform you of something much worse? Hell is promised by God for those who disbelieve. What a miserable destiny. And that was 2272. I'll put it in the chat.
Also 63:4.
You want to read that one?
Which verse? 63:4?
Oh, you said 63:4. Sorry, I put the wrong one.
I'm saying also this word describes them well, that they think every call is intended against them.
Yeah, I can read it. It says, when you see them, you may be impressed by their looks. And when they speak, you may listen to their eloquence. They are like standing logs. They think that every call is intended against them. These are the real enemies. Beware of them. God condemns them. They have deviated. Right, and the subtitle says, a chip on their shoulders. You know where that expression comes from? Actually, it's worth investigating. I heard this years ago. They said so in the past, when you go to the saloons, they would put sawdust everywhere. And if someone was challenging someone to a fight, they would put these chips of wood on their shoulder and then challenge the other person to come knock it down.
That's fun.
Yeah, it goes to show the importance of idioms, right? Because if someone just thinks a chip on their shoulder and takes it literally, they're going to miss the bigger idea that's being conveyed.
Yes, issues with you guys, and issues مختلف.
Hey Navid, you got a hot mic, brother.
Peace be upon you. Verse 35. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It says, every soul will test death after we put you to the test through adversity of prosperity. Then to us you will ultimately return. Still looking at the issue of one God. God never dies. So 25:58. Yes. God is the living one, the eternal, it never dies. But all others, will die. Jesus, that is being considered as a God today by the Christians, had died. Even though the soul was, raised in the same manner as every righteous soul will be raised, but he died. The Christians will accept this fact that he died, even if it is for one day. He had died. This proves that Jesus is not a God, beside God. God never dies, but Jesus died. And any other God that is being worshipped by any group of sects or people, some of them, they fabricate them or create them by themselves with their own hands. This is how terrible the situation of some human beings can be. And Jesus, being a messenger of God, must have, experienced some challenges with the disbelievers, that may be a kind of a hardship, or he may have suffered some hardship in his life as a human being. Whatever it is, it confirms that he is not God. He can never be a God beside God. So, and no any other God can be considered a God beside God, for as long as they will die, and God never dies. And they don't even know when they will be resurrected on the day of judgment. And all of them will be questioned by God. We have seen in Surah 5, 1, is it? 106 or 116 to 120, when Jesus was asked about if he and his mother were the ones who asked their followers to worship them. And Jesus had to exonerate himself. So Jesus could not be a God beside God. Thank you.
I wanted to add something to this aspect of it says he is the one who created the night and day, the sun and the moon, each floating in its orbit. So every year, if I'm not mistaken, the moon moves about 4 centimeters per year further away from the Earth. And if you extrapolate that out, that means 1,000,000 years ago, the moon was much closer towards the Earth. The cycles of the day caused the Earth to basically turn faster. And also, there's another factor here. So not only would that impact the level of the tides. So if you go to some of these coastal places that are next to mountains, you'll see that there's sea crustaceans, fossils in the mountains, because the tides used to, not only was the land shifted, but the tides used to be way higher than what they are today. They're relatively stable. But there's another, just a bigger phenomenon here, is where the proportions are just perfect in this time period, where we have a perfect solar eclipse. It just happens that currently in the where the position of the sun, moon, and Earth are, that from our vantage point, the moon appears the exact same size as the sun, because it's 400 times smaller and 400 times closer. And you say, okay, well, what's the big deal about this? The significance here is because of a perfect solar eclipse. In the year, if I'm not mistaken, 1919, we were able to confirm 2 things. One was the fact that Einstein's theory of general relativity, that light is bent basically by mass. And then secondly, this aspect, because we get a perfect solar eclipse, we could use spectroscopy and determine that the sun, stars in general, are made of hydrogen and helium. And this is what Said was talking about when he's talking about Hubble, where they confirmed the Big Bang. Hubble's observation was when he was looking at the stars in the what they thought was the galaxy. They realized these are actually galaxies beyond our own. Was that the farther away the object is, the more of a shift there was on the light spectrum towards the red shift, meaning that it's moving at faster speeds away from the Earth. And when they extrapolated this all backwards, is because of this perfect, scientific experiment that God put on this earth exactly at the time period when humans had the technical sophistication to use this experiment. We were able to tell that, yes, the universe is expanding. And if you took all these things in rewind, then you would realize that they all must have coalesced into one single mass at some point in history, roughly 14 billion years ago. Right. So it just happens that because these proportions are perfect, and we just happen to be on the one planet in the entire solar system that has these perfect proportions in the one time of the 4 billion years of planet Earth's history, that's quite a big coincidence. This all shows that it's like, okay, if the mere purpose of the universe, the Earth, was just for the sustainability of life. The big question is, why is it so perfectly tailored for scientific advancement, for us to be able to understand, these origins of the universe?
I
You know,
don't know,
this
at a
is
point that I remember, maybe not remembered, but I didn't have the chance to address it during the Quran study. When God is, or the subtitle was, the Big Bang confirmed. Some of the things you'll find with science or any number of systems on Earth is that they shift based on the tides, right? Whoever's the most popular or whatever's the most, satanic version of reality kind of gets shifted forward. And, as a kid, I remember being told evolution is a fact, right? And it's the same with the Big Bang. And one thing for example, recently, maybe not that recently, about a year and a bit ago, we sent the James Webb Space Telescope out. And what it does is it measures frequency in the long range, which is this redshift that was mentioned just now. What the James Webb telescope found was basically that the age of the universe was much earlier than anticipated, because either that or something else was at play, because it was finding galaxies that are much older than it should be possible, closer to the beginning of time. So if the universe started from a Big Bang, theoretically everything needed time to coalesce and become matter. Like Earth, for example, we would need a bunch of matter collision, and eventually it will form the crux of the Earth. And that's also the proponent today, to say that the moon is basically a sum of accretion disks around the Earth that eventually combine based on gravity and mass to become the moon. But the point is, because of this new discovery, they're in doubt of whether the Big Bang was legit, right? And all it is, and the more you look into it, is that it just shades the doubt on the starting point of the Big Bang. It was around like 13 billion years or something like that. So this discovery either means it wasn't by a Big Bang, or the Big Bang happened much earlier by a few billion years, which is a significant margin of error. But the thing is, with belief, when you understand God and you have the Quran, right, you go through Code 19, you really see that this couldn't have come from anyone or any being other than the Almighty Creator. You understand that this is a fact, right? You're unmoved by the tides of information. So today, someone's going to believe in evolution, that you were a monkey or whatever it is. But your position is that you were an evolved or guided event by God, right? It's not to say that we couldn't have come from water, which is the case anyway, but it's impossible for it to happen by chance. And that's the difference. They want to purport the idea that this is all random. It was all, if you have infinite time, infinite whatever, it's eventually going to happen. That's preposterous, right? The reality of life is such that even for one protein to fold, and in your body there's like I think it's octillions. This is a huge number of atoms, let alone proteins. It would take 10 to the 160, I think, was the improbability to fold. And when you have people misunderestimate the value of Code 19, even before accepting submission and really going through Code 19, I was swayed by this information, thinking, oh, maybe the Big Bang isn't legit, or there's a better explanation. And as soon as I validated Code 19 and accepted Rashad as a messenger, that worry disappeared, right? Any number of information could be presented to me and I would be unwavering, to the point that Ilham was talking about earlier, where he was saying, sometimes I worry about whether my position or my understanding is correct or incorrect. And one way you can assess whether that's true or not, God says in the Quran that for the believers who are certain, we manifest the miracles for them. So this is a sign that if you're certain in your position, in your understanding of God's full authority, and that he would send out of his mercy a clarifying messenger to you, and you're certain, right, there's not even a shade of doubt, then the miracles then will appear. You have to get there first. So if you start seeing 19, life just goes swimmingly for you. Everything just goes well, right? You're pristine in your internal mechanisms. then this is a miracle from God. And a sign of a miracle is that it's improbable. The chances of this happening is very, very low, extremely low. So that's how I measure my kind of position in life. If a miracle keeps appearing in front of me, signs from God, then I know I'm on the right path. But obviously, if I'm being punished, this is another beauty of the system, even a pinch, the closer you are to submission, the greater your striving and submission, then the bigger the effect of that pinch. Rashad says so in I think an audio or a video, can't remember. He says it's balance, it's commensurate with your submission, right? A messenger of God, for example, can't beseech randomly someone else trying to help him, right? Like Joseph, when he said, I know, when Joseph said, you remember me at your Lord, right? That's a grave sin. And so the punishment is commensurate to his submission, his absolute level of certainty. If you're still looking for submission, you will have that grace. But once you're on the other side, that grace disappears. Your punishment is missing a prayer, for example, right? Your soul did not grow that day by that margin. It's a painful effect. Oh, that was a spiel. Thank you.
We briefly touched on it, but I feel like there's more to be said regarding the 21, 27, because they never speak on their own. They strictly follow his commands, where they think that anything that's uttered out of the mouth of the prophet or messenger, that is the verbatim speech of God. And clearly, like the Quran here is talking about the revelation. And we get this a lot because we even have examples in the Quran where the messenger is speaking of his own interest, right? And God corrects the situation. But even those, they're meant for a test, for a lesson. It's happening under the purview of God's authority. This concept that, yeah, hey, let's assume that the hadith is the speech of the prophet. They're extrapolating rulings that he's not making based on what he supposedly said, rather than going with the direct speech of God that he was commanded to reveal. Anyone else want to comment or bring up a topic of interest regarding either these verses or just anything within the Quran?
Yeah, peace be upon you.
Oh, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about. I'm not sure if it's the new one. I think you did a new piece on what you called the beautiful patience. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
beautiful
interesting.
patience.
I listened to those. Was really into. Is it? So your take was that Joseph was, when he was in the prison. Obviously, he had what we call a bit of a. Obviously, we know how he got there. He basically wanted to get there, but then his stay got extended because um, he didn't trust God, or he basically put his trust in someone else. On the person that was based on his dream was to be saved, and then he stayed a few years longer perhaps. And what happens is that your assessment was that when actually it's time for him to do an interpretation of a dream, and basically the situation changes, so he's not like he doesn't doubt himself, or he doesn't doubt the situation, so he's not trying to control the matters. He's trusting God basically a lot more than before. Perhaps this is the prison has this is basically a speculation or your assessment that what happened during this time is that he has grown his soul to the extent that obviously now things have changed for him, right? Is that what you were trying to say?
Correct. Yeah. He has an awakening, right? He comes to the realization that this whole time, everything that happened in his life to this point wasn't because of the actions of other people. That this is what God willed, right? The one time he goes to defend himself in the case of the governor's wife, what's interesting is, the original verdict was in his favor, even though there was no, concrete rule, like lesson to why, if his garment's torn from the front or the back,
Yeah.
who's the guilty party. It ends up in his favor, yet he still goes to prison, right? So it wasn't them. This was all necessary. He had to go through these ordeals, these trials for, as I'm kind of insinuating, Jacob, this trust of this beautiful patience, that you'll see beauty at the end of this. But, in the midst of it, in any of the cross sections, you're going to see injustice. You're going to see, betrayal. But if you're patient through the whole ordeal, you will see God's beauty in the reasons that he had these things play out the way that they did.
Was Jacob doing anything, like, doing anything wrong in this? Was he not? He was the patient one, right? So because the problem that I have with the part that he says he has a dilemma. Is it the dilemma his children, his 12 sons is his dilemma?
All of it, right? So he's
questioning God's wisdom. What is happening?
No. He says none despairs of God's grace, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't know how this thing's all going to play out, right? He knows it's going to play out in Joseph's favor. He doesn't know what the outcome's going to be for his sons who, framed Joseph's death, never showed remorse, never owned up to their actions and behavior. And he doesn't know how Joseph is going to respond by this, because as it specifies in the Quran, one is permitted to retaliate in a like manner to what was done to you. But God says if you resort to patience instead of revenge, it would be better for the patient ones, and your patience can only be obtained by God's help. Meaning that, okay, did these events, these ordeals, did it cause Joseph to become jaded? Because he had every right, when the brothers came to him and said, look, you did this to me, I'm going to retaliate and do it to you. But rather he took the higher ground.
Yeah.
And he created, by God's leave, conditions by which they can actually be redeemed.
I'm trying to get the lesson for Jacob. What was his lesson?
So,
was his
yeah,
lesson
yeah,
that he just had to be patient, or was his lesson that he had to do something different? That we know that there was a verse in the Quran says that God does not change the condition unless you change. So was Jacob also changed in some of this process in some way or fashion?
It says anything good that happens to you is from God. Anything that bad that happens to you from yourself. Okay.
Yeah,
there's certain punishments that happen to us externally. Okay. These are the ones that when we step out of God's system, we break God's commandments. God allows us, if we deserve it, to get a pinch to get us back on the right track. Then there's other kinds of punishments where we know what the right path is. We just don't have the ability to follow through with it. In these oftentimes the punishment is in the fact that they're not following through with God's command. Right? I'll give you the example in Surah 4. It talks about the sedentary, and these are people who God says that there's forgiveness for them. But you have to ask, say that's weird, because in Surah 9 it says that the sedentary in that use case, that their destiny is hell. So what's the difference? In Surah 4, this is before the Hijrah. And these are people who are being persecuted, oppressed. They can't worship freely. And God is telling them to immigrate. But because they're weak in belief, they don't have the confidence to actually trust that, look, if you immigrate in the cause of God, God's going to reward you. He's going to enrich you. He's going to make up for anything that you've lost. They continue to stay in a place where they're being persecuted. And that in itself is the punishment. Right? The fact that they're not following through with God's command and they know they should, they're being punished, not in the sense of like God is punishing them. It's in the fact that they're not following through with it. If they do, it's going to make life easy for them, right? And I see it in the same case of Jacob. Here's someone he knows he has to be patient. He knows God is promising something good to come out of this. But the aspect is he's still sad. He's still, troubled by everything that he's seeing that's transpiring in front of him, and he's suffering for that. But
Could it be part?
Okay.
Could it be part that also he doesn't know how to deal with his sons?
Possibly, but I don't
He
think
doesn't
that's
know how
on
to
him.
stand up to they're sort of basically doing whatever they do, and they're sort of I don't know what he could do, but they're just getting away with
Exactly.
it.
What I always think of is God is telling us all the details we need to know. If there was something of that nature that we need to know, then we should be able to extract it from the Quran. If it's not mentioned, like distinctly not mentioned, it's probably not one of the possibilities, right? And my thought is, he knows that okay, God is going to bring something good out of this. Okay, he knows his children are like betraying him. What he doesn't know is, okay, how's this whole thing going to play out? He knows in the case of Joseph, it's going to be, work out well for him. He doesn't know that for the case of his son, as far as what we can tell, right? And when he's
Yeah.
seeing that they're constantly doubling down on this lie, this major transgression, they're not showing any remorse. Even when they're talking to Joseph, they said, "Oh, if he stole, so did a brother of his in the past," indicating that they have zero remorse for what they've done. Despite that, Joseph still followed through, hoping that this is going to be the wake up call for them. And I kind of see the same thing in Jacob, where it's just like, okay, there's going to be a happy ending, but it's really hard for you to see it based on how the circumstances are currently
Yeah.
transpiring.
Yeah, I mean, grieving so many years, and I mean, grieving for, it doesn't specifically say, but perhaps it could definitely includes the situation with his 12 sons and the way they're behaving and the way they behaved in the past, and knowing the fact. But at the same time, he has some information from God. So when he's telling them to go through different doors, it's not just because he thinks it's a good idea. He's basically, this is through inspiration, I would believe, right? He has, so he's not completely kept in the blind. Perhaps he's getting bits and pieces of information here and there, and that basically that keeps him going on. So the question is, how would you? He knows the light. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but because he doesn't have enough details, he's still grieving, right?
Can I comment on this, God willing? Ironically, us as submitters, we have this promise from God too, right? We should know that after any adversity, any problem, any situation, we're supposed to know and trust that, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. God's going to have everything work out okay. We may not know the exact outcome or the details of it or how it's going to transpire, but we're supposed to not object. But it's human nature, right? We have to struggle with that. We have to come to terms with that and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, sure, his son got a dream and he was informed of it and things like this. But hey, we have the Quran. This is why when you read in the Quran, it talks about the later generations being thrown into hell. Like first, it's like the first generations, and then the later generations they get thrown in. And every time a later generation gets thrown in, it says, "Hey, like these are the guys who misled us. Give them double the retribution." And then the people in hell say, "You had a greater advantage than us, right? So you deserve like double the retribution." And the reason why we have a greater advantage is because we have such a comprehensive history of where people went wrong, what they did wrong, the wrong choices, beliefs, understandings, thoughts, and feelings they had about God, and where they went wrong, and it's laid out for us. So I would even say we probably have a greater advantage than we're at a greater advantage than even Jacob himself, right? Because I don't necessarily think they had a precedent to look back on and say, okay, well, hey, in the past there was a guy Gilgamesh or whatever, and he went through the same thing as I'm going through. They don't have that, right? And we have situations that don't come close to that, and we can reflect on that and say, hey, I'm going through something minor, but this guy went through something major, and God came through for him. Is God not able to come through for me in a lesser of a situation, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is a lesson for us to learn that these qualities we embody in ourselves. I mean, they go through purification process as much as we are going, or perhaps we're supposed to be embracing this, and we should be okay with not knowing. This is what perhaps is the real faith part that really kicks in any circumstances, because we are in a era that we have a lot of information, and not knowing becomes a less of a thing until something happens. You always have phone, you always have text message, you always can keep get information from where people are, what they're doing, what this and what that. And back then there was none of that, obviously, right? There was more acceptance of not knowing what's going on for a longer period of time, because they didn't live in this communication world. But now we live in the opposite of what was in the past. The world that information is very readily available in all fronts of it. So when the circumstances happen that we don't know how things are playing out at the moment, or for the next, I don't know, hours or days even, we become uncomfortable. We become sometimes despondent, or impatient, or that's the challenge of the time, I believe.
Can I share a possible example that I think most of us probably have experienced? If we're going through some hardship in life, we say, okay, we trust in God. God's going to make the situation work out, this and that. Yet, we still have restless nights of sleep. We're still, constantly thinking about it and second guessing and this and that. We know that the appropriate response is, hey, just submit, trust in God. God's going to have the situation work out. But all this stress that we're putting on ourselves is not a retribution that God is causing. It's something that we're putting upon ourselves. I see Jacob.
Is this the byproduct of our lack of trust, perhaps? Let's say lack of
Possibly.
trust. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's hard for us to perceive how God's going to fix the situation. Because we look at the options, we say, okay, I don't see a way, and because of that, it gives us apprehension. I don't want to say so much even doubt, but just uncertainty, anxiety.
And God knows that. I mean, the same situation happens for Moses' mother. I mean, she grew anxious, justifiably so, because people were killing boys, and she to the point that she was about to give away, or I don't know, was it her or her daughter? They were out to basically sabotage uh, the grand plan. But so God knows that, and yet um, turn the situation in a way that she would be less worried. So
Hey, sorry, one thing I just want to say, could you guys tap in, make sure you're tapped interested on the Grand Crown Study event at VC1-Chat. We're just trying to reach 100. It's on 93 right now. When you go on it, just make sure the interested has a check mark. That's all. Thanks. Go ahead. Continue.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my understanding is that we have stories, as Elham says in the Quran, that God had made some reassurances to the people when the situation was very dire, and given the fact that they knew that their soul needed more reassurance. I mean, Moses asked for it, so we can ask for it. Abraham asked for it, so we all can ask for reassurance during the process. I don't see anything wrong with it, but just I think we all put to the test in the amount that we would think we can gauge and say, oh, you know what? I was comfortable with this situation A, but when the A turns to B, then I become uncomfortable and anxious. So my level of faith is right at A, but I'm not there yet. So maybe God willing, in a year or so, I'll be able to handle this B situation or whatnot. So this is all about how you can your faith basically reassures you, and you come to yourself and say, you know what, why am I doing this? Inshallah. But the story of Joseph and Jacob, it is one of the very what we call full of wisdom kind of story. You can look at it from a different angle, and you can always look at it through different glasses and look at it and see how it really resonates with our lives in different situations, and learn lessons from it. It is my one of my favorite stories in the Quran. A story that has different aspects of it. Story of Moses is another one that we see it being repeated in the Quran, and always looks at it from a different angle, and we can see how Moses reacted differently as he went through his life, and yet he still, I don't know when he actually met with one of these messengers, but if it's at the end of his life or before that, but we say that everyone has the opportunity for growth. Everybody has something to learn at any stage of our lives, and this is the main lesson that we can get, that even messengers had an opportunity to look at and reflect and say, you know what, I need to work on this.